Oh. Hello, everyone. Really nice to be here again. Lots of familiar faces everywhere. So thank you, Arthur, for the introduction. As he mentioned, I'm from the Zabbix support team in Latam, and also a certified trainer. And today I'm going to talk about the Zabbix utils. Where's the laser? Here it is. OK. Let's talk about the Zabbix utils. Before we begin, I'd like to make a question. Who here is using Zabbix utils, has been using Zabbix utils? Oh, OK. Too few yet. OK, it's pretty new. Understandable. OK, Zabbix utils. Well, first off, it's pretty new. It was released on November last year, 2017, something like this. But it was officially released on the beginning of this year. So it is pretty new. If you don't know about it, OK, you're going to know about it right now. And before I start talking directly about it, I always like to ask 3 questions and try to answer 3 questions when I'm talking about something new. What is it? What is it for? And how does it work? So let's answer these questions to try to understand a little better about Zabbix utils library. Well, what is it? The name gives it away. It's an officially supported Zabbix Python library maintained by our integration team. So pay attention to the officially supported. It's not a community. It's not some partner. No. Officially, the members of our integration team is taking care of the maintenance and everything else related to the Zabbix utils. And these 2 guys here are the responsible guys. Andrei Biba and Alexander Jensen. These guys are the persons behind the screen that are developing this. Okay. Thank you, guys. They are not here, but thank you, guys, if you are watching on YouTube for your great work. And one question that you may be doing, why Python? And I say, why not Python? Well, Python is really popular programming language that we have right now. And it's pretty easy to understand it. It's a favorite for SREs, for DevOps engineers, and for system administrators. So it's not only really good, it's easy to learn. So the curve of learning, it's pretty fast. You can start teaching people, and in about a month, they can start doing some basic scripts. So it's pretty cool. And what is it for? What is the Zabbix utils library for? The main concept of it is to, as Alexei mentioned in the morning, is to simplify the interaction with the Zabbix API. And of course, we're going to see cases with Zabbix API. It makes it easier. But not only that, you can also interact directly with the Zabbix server or proxies and with the Zabbix agents. It's not all only about the API. The API is a big deal, okay? But we'll see some examples about the other methods. And the last question, how does it work? Well, it's a library. Okay, you need to install it on your operating system to have it running, to create your scripts. But how does it work? What do we have inside it? We have different classes for specific purposes. First class is the Zabbix API. So you can interact with the Zabbix API natively. No need to install anything else. You can just run the Zabbix utils and start writing your script in Python, and you can interact with the Zabbix API. Alexei also showed an example in the morning. We have the getter class. Getter, what does it remind you? Get, Zabbix get. You get information from agents using these classes, the methods of this class. Same concept for the sender, but instead of getting information, you are sending information. Okay? It's not only about the API. That's what I've been talking about. And we also have item value, which you can use with the sender to send a bunch of items, a bunch of values, on the same connection, the same request. But there's one specific thing about these 4 guys here. Basically, the 3 first. They work like this. Well, as you can see, it's a sequence. they work in a synchronous mode. And you may be thinking, okay, we have Zabbix 7.0, and we now have asynchronous data collectors. What about the Zabbix utils? Well, we also have this. No surprise here. We also have this, and we have the corresponding classes: async Zabbix API, async getter, and async sender. And if you are not familiar with this, I believe that everybody here knows about it, but it's on my presentation. Let me show you. This is how they should work, right? Concurrent tasks being executed at the same moment by the same process. And of course, you may think, okay, I have asynchronous classes. I can use asynchronous classes. But your script may have a requirement that you need to execute the first task, and just after it is finished, you execute the next one, and then so on. It depends on what you are doing with the automation, with the script that you are trying to create, with the task that you want to reach. And asynchronous classes, you can work with many values at the same time, sending information or collecting information all at the same time, just like we have with the data collectors on Zabbix. I move my hands too much. Okay, some requirements and installations to use these guys. Supported versions of the Zabbix server, Zabbix since 5.0 up to now, Python starting with 3.8. It has been tested and officially tested. Remember, this is an official library. It has been tested in Zabbix 5.0 up to now, with the exception of 6.2, because it's no longer supported when it was released. And Python versions, I will not be naming them, but you can see here from 3.8 up to 3.12. And we have a specific requirement and dependence if you are trying to work with a synchronous mode. You need to make sure that you also have the AIO HTTP library. It is, AIO means asynchronous input-output HTTP. So you can use the Zabbix API, async Zabbix API, with this guy. You need this as a requirement. And for the installation, it's pretty easy. Pretty simple. You have 3 ways on how you want to install this. You have the Python package index, also known as pip. You can just pip, install Zabbix utils, or Zabbix utils async for synchronous mode. Quite self-explanatory. From the Zabbix repositories, we have pre-built packages just for that as well. You can download it with your Red Hat-based distribution or your Debian-based distribution, whatever, the one you prefer, the one you like. No distinctions here. Python 3 Zabbix utils is the name of the package. And lastly, you can install it directly from our GitHub. You can just git clone, get the URL for the GitHub, the Python Zabbix utils GitHub, and just install the setup.py with the install parameter. Okay, this is the basics. Let's see the use cases. And I try to be quick here because I'm too slow. Okay, let's see. First use case, I have a scenario. I want to get rid of a node monitoring application, and I want to change to Zabbix. And you know, some customers, every customer, every user have their specific requirements. Let's say that in this case, which I have to deal with, the customer wanted to have at least the last month of data inside Zabbix. And he was like, how can we transfer this from RRD, who he has worked with RRD files? Round robin, database, few hands, I think 5, 4. Yeah, it's used by legacy tools. Not as good as Zabbix. Just saying. And what is the purpose of, what was the purpose, the goal of my project here? Get data from this RRD file, create the corresponding hosts with the metrics that was being monitored by the legacy tool, and just get the historic information from it and push to Zabbix. After that, we would just have to make some arrangements and trim something out from Zabbix with the Zabbix agents and etc. We'll see more details on that. So, okay, the overview. A Python script that integrates RRD2 and Zabbix would use to automate pushing metrics into Zabbix. The key components were the RRD2, which is a library to deal with RRD in Python, and the Zabbix API class from the Zabbix utils. We had to set the authentication, of course. We need to get the token for the user that's going to be using the API, and we just listed the hosts that were on the file, on the RRD file, the original file. And then we just did an item mapping. It may be different for some cases. In this case, it's what was pretty regular, pretty standard. So the metrics on the legacy too is pretty descriptive. We have CPU util, the utilization of CPU, and we have a key just for that in Zabbix, system CPU util, and so on. We make this mapping in order to create our items with these keys. And you see where we are going, right? Again, I'm getting old metrics and just adjusting this to Zabbix. These are just small examples. We had more. Okay. And okay, what will the script do? The script will get the information that has been mapped. Based on then, it will create corresponding Zabbix items with those keys. But it will be set as a Zabbix trapper. And you may think, Victor, you are using the Zabbix agent native keys. Okay, but I can use those keys with the type of agent Zabbix trapper. As long as they are unique in the host, it doesn't matter. And what is the idea? The script was reading the RRD file and was executing a for. And for every line, it was executing and pushing the history with the new method of the API. I don't know if you are aware of it. We have a new method called history push. The history push is just doing that. It's pushing history data. It's just like the Zabbix sender. When you set the Zabbix sender, you are sending information to Zabbix or to the proxy with you just need to name the name of the host, give the name of the host, the key, the value, and maybe the timestamp. And all of these informations we had on the RRD file. So every time the file was being read, those informations were being pushed to Zabbix accordingly. And it was taking so long. I was thinking, something's wrong here. It can't be so, I know, it was a development environment at first, just to test the script, but it was still so slow. It's because I was dumb. I was using synchronous mode. And since we are pushing data directly, I can use asynchronous execution. I don't need to use a sequential kind of information to be sent. They don't need to be in sequence because where is it? The timestamp is not here. Okay. The timestamp, it was not, it just sent to the Zabbix. So if you know a little bit of Zabbix basics, active items, they are written with the timestamp for the host, not the timestamp of the Zabbix server. And that works the same way for active for the Zabbix sender. And with this method, it's the same thing. So it doesn't matter if I receive the data for yesterday or for last 15 days, it will be arranged in the database, no matter what. It will be inserted. And doing this asynchronously, it was really way faster, way faster. The first test I did with synchronous mode, it was taking like 3 hours. It was a bunch of data. And a small environment just for test. And after this, applying the asynchronous mode, it was like way less than 1 hour. It was pretty fast. And of course, this was a specific scenario for a specific customer, not a big customer. He was just a new user of Zabbix, and he demanded to have these metrics on the first run. And I didn't know how to work with RRD file. I just started looking up, and I say, okay, this is a possible way. My idea here is not to say, this is the best script ever, you must use it. No, it was just the idea, the thing that worked for me at that case, at that scenario. The goal here is to present to you guys the possibilities that the Zabbix utils can give. So I just did a bunch of things here just using Python. Just using Python, no external tool, just using the Zabbix utils method and the methods, not methods, the Zabbix utils library. Second use case is going to be way more simpler. Who here have scripts being executed on your customers, on your servers, that are executing and giving you an output, and you want to monitor those outputs? I ask that question. Please raise your hands if you have. Okay, I see some shy ones just like this. The whole time. Okay, and in this scenario, I was playing around, and I was thinking, okay, database backup. Let's get database as an example. We run a database, a script in Python to execute the database, MySQL dump, extra backup, whatever you prefer. And as the output of that guy, I was asked to generate the report. The report was supposed to bring some basic information about the backup, like how long did it take, how many megabytes or kbytes, kilobytes was transferred, was written on the backup. It was an incremental backup. And had we have some error, when did it start, when did it end, some basic stuff like this. You can always be creative, you know, the sky's the limit. And what did I do? I added the sender class from the Zabbix utils on the script. So I was getting all the output of that guy written in JSON and using the sender class to send this directly to my Zabbix server, to my host. Make sure that the script generates the desired data, push the report data to Zabbix, and use the content as the master item. So this is an example of what I'm talking about. I have a simple JSON here, right, with all the information from a backup. And this is just a really small script that works for this. Okay? Instead of value being a static, having this variable having a static value, this value can be the output for the backup or for whatever kind of script you are running. Okay? This guy here, I'm importing the sender class, and I'm setting the sender variable. Using this method, I'm pointing to the Zabbix server, my Zabbix here, and the trapper port. I'm going to send some information to the Zabbix server, so it needs to have the correct port. And the response that I have, like sender.send value. I'm sending the value to the host DB report with the report.data key and the value, which is this JSON string. And what did I got in Zabbix was this. I have a master item that is receiving all this information. I'm not keeping history, best practice, remember that. And I have my dependent items using JSON path, extracting exactly everything I need to do. This is just a simple example. You can, of course, do something like this on your scripts. Just make sure that you are following the best practices and don't do this in production first thing. Just remember that it's way better to use this on a test environment so you are not fired or killed, stuff like that. So thank you, guys. That has been my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.